Hey everybody, this is Jay Weidner, of course. This is Reality Check. Please help me hit subscribe and share, I guess is really important here. So do all those things to help me and keep trying to bring you interesting people and interesting information. Today we're going to go on a slightly different track than I usually do, but it's going to be interesting. My guest is Elana Freeland, and she's a writer and also ghost writes. And I'm going to let her introduce herself to you. But we do have a mutual friend. When I lived in Port Townsend, Washington, uh, Adam Parfrey, the late Adam Parfrey of Feral House, and I were really good friends for a while. And he passed away. I don't know how long ago did he pass away. I can't remember, like 3 years ago.
Couple 3 years.
Yeah. Anyway, Elana, how are you?
Good. I'm thrilled to finally meet you, Jay. Other than seeing you at a conference from a distance.
Right. Yes. So tell the audience about yourself, because you got a really interesting background.
Oh gosh, where to start? I mean, I'm the granddaughter of a Romanian Roma. She raised me basically while my mother worked very hard after we left my father. When I was 3, and I lived in an Eastern European neighborhood from the time I was 3 till I was 8. And that was a huge, huge influence on me, because not only was my grandmother Romanian and my grandfather, but my Nana and Nasha, my godparents, were Hungarian. They lived upstairs. And then the whole neighborhood, 5 square blocks in Detroit, Michigan, was kind of like Little Italy in New York. I mean, it was just Eastern Europeans working for Ford and General Motors.
Right.
So, it was a completely different era. I heard 5-6 languages a day was normal. I was very shy in those days and took a lot in and had a very big inner life of my own. So my grandmother was a huge influence on me, because she always said there are at least 2 worlds. She said there's this world and then there's the other world. And she was never specific. She was clairvoyant. She read cards and tea leaves for all of our neighbors to tell them how the folks were doing back home in Eastern Europe. And I would stand beside her while she did that. She was an amazing, very matriarchal woman. So that was my beginning. Then I'd say let's jump quickly to when I was 16 or 15. I was chosen to go to Girls State in my home state, which is Girls State is like Boys State is mock state government. So at mock state government, I became the campaign manager for my party, and we won by a landslide. And so my name was known, and then I was chosen to go to Washington, D.C. To Girls Nation. The same year, Bill Clinton was at Boys Nation. I've heard him refer to it many times. And that was 1963, the year.
Where he shook Kennedy's hand. The famous picture
And
of Bill Clinton.
I was in the Rose Garden with him, and he said I looked like his wife, which at that point I did look a lot like Jackie Kennedy. And so I sat beside him for a few quick snaps and became a celebrity overnight, my 15 minutes of fame in my home state. And when I went back, I had to give talks about my day with Kennedy. And then 3 months later, he was dead. And I had to go back to these civic groups and speak to rooms filled with sobbing Americans. And I think that what really was, other than my Eastern European background, I think that was the beginning of my political life, was John Kennedy. Just the brief moment I had with him, I honestly really felt that there was tremendous quality there. And I didn't know what that meant at 16, but I took it away with me. And then, of course, I was in the 60s generation, having been born post 1945. And we were, you know what we were. We were this amazing generation of Renaissance people. At least I was around the Renaissance people before the CIA and the FBI and COINTELPRO jammed the streets with bad drugs and began killed our 3 favorite people, John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy, along with Malcolm X. And then all of our rock stars they began to kill. And you know, I was aware to a degree, but I was pretty young. But I was moving around the country, hitchhiking and going to different universities. I finally graduated after 10 years at 5 universities and colleges. And I was talking to a lot of people and always writing for the college newspaper wherever I was. So, you know, already, I mean, I'd known I was going to be a writer and a teacher since I was 5 years old. I'm just one of those people that came in to do something and then I'll be out of here at the airport, right? The airport where everybody's coming and going.
But your story is very similar in a lot of ways to mine. I the same thing with me in college. I really didn't want to get a degree. I wanted to learn things. So I would just take whatever courses I wanted to take. And my parents were freaking out about it. And, you know, and I vividly remember the day Kennedy died. I still always will. And uh, it was such a different world. And then it was like for this one moment, there was this incredible thing happening. And then it really started with the Manson murders, and which are looking more and more like they were staged in some way, a design to bring down the hippies to make everybody look bad, which they did. And then it really went from the Manson murders to Kent State, that little 5-year, 4-year period right there. And by the end of that, it had descended into the politics had turned into gangsterism, and the drugs that ravaged the whole populations. I mean, you have no idea how easy it was to get speed and methadone. It was just like candy at the store. I saw so many friends go down on methadone, and he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And you know, so yeah, it was definitely a COINTELPRO action designed to stop a moment of freedom that happened.
And the largest generation in history. We were the largest generation in history. And we were there were exceptional things about our generation. It's as though we'd come in loaded for consciousness. And we were, the vanguard anyway, was in pursuit of that. Maybe the followers were in pursuit of drugs and highs and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, as Newsweek magazine likes to tell it. But that's why I wrote the Sub Rosa America series.
Yeah.
And that's 4 books. It's in a fictional format, but really, they belong next to Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. They are history books about the time from all the way from the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War to present day. And in fact, Jay, I wanted to tell you, maybe you've heard me say it, I haven't said it often, but I had a dream in 1993 when I was writing a short story. I didn't yet know that I was writing 1,300 pages in the Sub Rosa America series. I was writing it as a short story, and I had a dream in which there was the numbers 2019 were at least 3 or 4 stories high in front of me, on fire. And I woke up from it and realized, my God, the year 2019, that's the year I'm going to start a book. And I'm going to have it be a flashback to the 60s and the people I knew in the 60s, not the sex, drugs, and rock and roll people necessarily, but the spiritual seekers, the people who were, we had long, all night long, walking the streets of whatever city we were in, discussions of the politics. And you know, we were extremely on, and every blow we took was something that we examined to the best of our ability. We did not just lay down and become like, I think of it often now with the BLM movement and some of the things that look very 60-ish to me, very, very CIA-driven 60-ish.
Yes.
And yet the difference now, as you can imagine, is the technology. I mean, the technology, everybody's got an iPhone. I don't own one. It's a weapon system. I refuse to own one. But they've got their cell phones. They're in touch. You know, they've got money coming in. They've got weapons. They've got, you know, George Soros doing whatever. And it's a different, bigger scenario now than the little thing that was going on then that was also being manipulated. No doubt about it.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Have you ever read Acid Dreams?
Oh,
About,
yeah.
yeah.
Marty Lees. Yeah,
Oh my God, that book is
absolutely.
so good. Yeah. Once you go down that one rabbit hole of seeing the manipulation and when it started and how they did it, and then you realize, like, when the CIA was called up in front of the church committee in the 70s, and you know, everybody thought, oh, Frank Church, you know, he's this brave guy, he's going to expose the CIA. Well, that's not really what was going on. If you actually think about it, it was the CIA telling everybody, we can give you a heart attack. We can kill you from 500 yards. And the CIA is literally threatening everybody in the world at those hearings, but everyone thought it was the opposite. Oh, this is a big revelation. No, they want you to know what they got, because
They want you to know.
That's right. The weapons are no good if you don't know about it, right?
Yeah, and
Frank
that's
Church died a year later. Remember?
yes.
Within a year
Oh,
after
yeah.
that, he was only like 44.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's sort of like the Hillary Clinton death road. The Jornada del Muerto of today was, at that point, the Jornada del Muerto of the CIA. I mean, people were dropping like flies. And, you know, one thing that you mentioned, the revelation, I want to point out, there was a big influence in my life that came quite a bit later than that what we've been discussing. It was Michael A. Hoffman II wrote a book called Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare.
Great book.
And it's a great little book, but it's a powerful experience to be able to see that the emperor has no clothes. Not only that, but he's got tattoos and symbols all over his body that indicate he's in secret societies up to his nostrils. So, you know, and Michael Hoffman learned that from James Shelby Downard.
Yeah.
And Shelby, I never met him. I should have. Was a Texan, and he's the one who laid out the 3 ritual alchemical events that started with the bomb or the devastation of prima materia in 1945.
Yep.
And then 19 years later, which is a moon node, right? A metonic cycle. 19 years later, John F. Kennedy, the killing of the king. Yep. And then again, that moved us into what is known as the revelation of the method. In other words, tell them what we're doing, because that's part of the satanic code, in my opinion.
That's right.
You have to let people know, and then, you know, it gives them a fighting chance of a sort, because you're way ahead of them when it comes to a certain kind of cunning and money and power, etc. And so we're in the period now of the revelation of the method, no question about it.
Right.
And when people say, well, you know, well, Elana, you're telling people what's going on. How come you're still alive? Well, that I'm probably doing them a big favor, I figure. I mean, they can turn straw into gold anytime they want at this point, at a certain level. At other levels, deep moral levels, deep inward levels, no, they can't do much there, but they can certainly do a lot externally.
Yeah, I've been recently, well, about a year ago, I asked myself, a question. I said, okay, if there is an Illuminati or cabal, whatever you want to call it, the top of the pyramid, there must be, because it just physically seems that that's the way it has to be. But I said to myself, okay, let's approach this like we don't know anything. How would we find out if there really was a group that ran the world, right? And I said to myself, okay, then we'd have to go back in time and we'd have to find out who were the first people who created ships. because they would be the first people to go out into the world, get maps, know where the minerals are, know where the forests are, know the people, get to know the people that live in other lands, right? And I said, these would be the people, if these people existed in history, these would be the people who most likely would control the world. And I started looking and I realized it was the Phoenicians. And they had these incredible boats, and they had a secret society, which is starting to look very much like the origins of Freemasonry from the rituals I'm looking at. And, and it was in Lebanon and Israel is where the Phoenicians lived. And they never fought in wars. They conquered their lands by trade, just like the New World Order. If you read what the Phoenicians were doing back 5,000 years ago, that you would see that they were actually the first New World Order. They believed in trade. They believed in getting to know your neighbors and controlling your neighbors through trade. And they and then I started thinking, well, every culture that had good navies, right? Is that just the Phoenicians going on and on, right? And I thought, okay, Rome would be next, right? And if you say Venetian, right, it sounds very close to Phoenician, and then England, right, and then the United States, of course, and even here in the United States, you know, there's this so-called secret space program, right, which is supposedly a secret space program run by somebody. So I was talking to an insider. I said, well, what agency is controlling the secret space program? He goes, the Navy, right? And I went, oh my God, right? So
yes, right.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know if the Phoenicians are running the world right now or whatever. I'm saying that I can create a scenario that walks its way through history that would reveal that, yes, it's certainly possible for one group to know everything way ahead of everybody else. And that's the scenario that I laid out for myself. And I'm working on a book right now to kind of prove this all. And the Phoenicians are very interesting, let me tell you.
Well, and I have to say, you're absolutely right about the U.S. Navy, because you know, I did 10 years of research on MK Ultra in order to understand everything about it, how it worked electromagnetically, how it worked chemically, etc. So the Navy was, not only is it the oldest branch of our armed services, but it is the most elite, and it's from elite families that all the officers of the U.S. Navy come. The old Pilgrim, original American stock, New England people. So they control the mind control stuff. The MK Ultra has, of course, they'll say that it ended in '73, but you and I know it didn't. It has continued and branched into remote mind control. I call it EMK Ultra, and they can program from far away. You know, I refer to the laptop boys a lot in my geoengineering work, because the laptop boys they're in touch with. They've got the satellites, they've got the towers, they've got the triangulation, and they've got the HARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, set up. They've got the other ionospheric heaters set up. The Navy is number one. And a lot of the guys who end up in the Navy are CIA, or vice versa. A lot of CIA are Navy. There is a very close bond there. So your insight into going all the way back to the Venetians is really, really good, Jay, because I think you're spot on. And we remember Kennedy's Secret Society speech a few weeks before. I don't know if it was weeks or maybe a month or two before he was killed. He was again saying, we have got to deal with this particular problem. And that's really what I've spent a lot of time, and in Sub Rosa America, there's a lot of time spent on Freemasonry in particular, because it's a very large international organization that is degree-centered, hierarchic. The entire legal system and police and towns founded. I mean, it's all Freemason. It's just that you don't read about it now because it's now hidden. It used to be you could look in Who's Who in America, that big fat book about, all the power mongers, and you'd see their affiliations. No more. That is gone. So we have to take into account this Sub Rosa text that's running the nation. People say, "Oh, we're losing our democracy." Democracy, I have never seen it. Besides, I don't think I agree with Plato. I think democracy is probably the lowest of the low because the people are simply not prepared to run themselves. And so, to me, the present fight going on in the political realm, there is some substance to it. It isn't just the same old, not at all, I don't think. But I think that one cabal is being shoved out.
They are.
And another one is entering. That's how I look at it. And for a while, that cabal, if it indeed holds the day, and God help us, I hope it does, because I am so tired of the deep state, so tired of them and their satanic ways. If this other one comes in, for a while it'll be goody two-shoes, and then, as go all things in this world, corruption will come and people will go to sleep. But less and less people, Jay, I'm counting on that. Less and less people go to sleep. I mean, this is the most awake I've seen America in my lifetime.
Oh, it is the most awake it has been ever. I want to say one thing, and then I want to comment on what you just said. John F. Kennedy was Office of Naval Intelligence. That's what the PT boats were. Okay.
Yes.
And yeah. So what happened is that this is what I heard anyway, is that the the New World Order dudes, 4 of them, went to China in 2015 and had a meeting with the 4 top leaders. And they said they were all kind of, the New World Order guys are kind of quisling and the Chinese are like this, right? And the New World Order guy, the leader of it, goes, "Hey, listen, you guys did a great job with your economy. We're really proud of you. Just want to, tell you what a good job you did, and we're really proud. And you do have to give us some credit. We did sell you a lot of blueprints and technology and all that." And the Chinese still are. And then he gets all done. He goes, "And we want you to join our family of nations. And the only thing that you have to do to join the family of nations is you have to liberalize your society." And there's this really long pause, and the leader of China goes, "What do you mean by liberalize your society?" And the New World Order guy goes, "Well, you have to do it Canada, the United States, and Europe, and all the advanced countries. You have to bring in all the races and all the people, and you create this really diverse society." And there's this. Apparently, it was the most painful pause in world history. So for like 2 minutes, nothing was said in the room. The Chinese didn't look at each other. They didn't say one word. They just stared at the other side. And finally, after a long silence, the leader of China goes, "Well, first off, thank you for inviting us, and thank you for your compliments. But you have to understand something. We are not a country. We are not a nation. We are a 5,000-year-old culture, and we are not listening to anybody, especially you." And the New World Order fell apart in that moment. All the hopes for globalization, all the hopes for intertravel and this kind of weird world they were building that they thought they could control, that just shattered in that moment. And they realized that the Chinese were never going to let them take power in China. So immediately they went and they created a new cabal, a new cabal. And this cabal had Donald Trump running it. Only as a figurehead. And this cabal was going to bring back everything back into the United States. They've changed their mind. They're now going to become a United States-centric cabal. They realized that we were a net exporter of food, that all the safety places were right here, and they got Trump elected. He's going to get reelected. and because it's all part of this long-term plan that they have. And it's a new cabal. So they changed it, and the old cabal doesn't know it yet. That's what's really funny. The old cabal does not realize that this is not just a madman with orange hair. It's a new cabal that literally has a plan, literally has, you know, a thing that they're going to do, and these guys are standing in the way of the old cabal, and and the new old cabal, it can't seem to even find their footing to fight back, because they just use the same old tricks over and over. Like, you know, that didn't work last time. Why are you trying it again? You know, and so yeah, you're right. There is a massive movement that's going to take place between now and 2024 of new leaders. A whole new set of people are going to be leading us that you don't even know about right now. And if you think about
Right.
it, the Democrats don't even have a bench. Like, you know, in basketball, you have a bunch of good players on your bench in case you need them. They don't have a bench. They haven't even developed a bench. So if Biden gets knocked out, it's like, well, you know, you don't have much left now. So it's an absolutely revolutionary time. And I'm actually feeling very optimistic, despite, you know, some of the things I'm hearing that are going on, especially in Canada. I don't know if you're aware of that letter.
Right, I am.
Oh my
I am.
goodness. Yeah, you know, the thing about that is, you know, first thing you say if you're a journalist is, okay, is that real, right? And then you say, well, I can't prove it's real. I can't prove it's not real. But I can tell you one thing: it sounds like how they talk. I mean, I know that much. I know how they talk, and that letter sounds like how they would talk. And that was that would be Trudeau that was telling them. They called him the PMO, which is the Prime Minister's office. So that would be Trudeau that was telling everybody what to do. And I believe that may be, if that's true, and we don't know it yet, if it is true, then I think China is now getting ready to go into action. They already are waging a secret war against us that people haven't figured out yet. But the war may go hot. You never know.
Right, and they have different secret societies. I mean, it's that's the key, is that the warfare is generally going on above our heads,
Right.
in another level, and then things are decided from there. And you know, it is, Jay. It's an exciting time to be alive, and I wanted to put a little compliment to our generation in here, that what was is no longer. We will not return to anything. You can never go back. I don't know why people haven't really realized that old adage is really true. It's going to have to be different, and so therefore the stories of the Cold War and how all of this was really developed in the Cold War, in my opinion. I mean, one thing you didn't mention regarding China that I think is really important is, like the Russian Revolution in 1917, it was completely backed by Western industrialist money. And then Western industrialist money supported Russia for 72 years, 9 times 8. They love those numbers. And much of the weaponry that we're now seeing, that people are being targeted in their homes, and all this secret directed energy weaponry was developed then. So same thing with the Chinese. The 1948 revolution was completely backed by Western industrialists. And there was control for a while, but obviously things have moved in a different direction. And the interesting part to me is how, and I don't want to continue the political discussion, but I want to say that the Democratic Party, the DNC anyway, seems to have been very influenced in its liberalism by Chinese relations, maybe for the technology, because as I write my books on geoengineering, truthfully, most of the names on patents and papers regarding the technology that goes into weaponizing the entire environment of the Earth are Chinese. And is somebody going to tell me, and I'm not naive, that these wonderful, brilliant Chinese youths working in American university labs. Somebody going to tell me that they're not sending everything back to the Chinese Communist Party? Come
Sure,
on,
they
you
are.
know. And so this really strange web of industrial money, corporate money, foundation money, old bloodline money is completely enwrapped with all of the politics going on now. So to do something simply and morally on the political stage, I don't know how you would do that. To me, I'm interested in, like us talking, we're the last generation uh, from an ancient time, as we are now completely mired in technology. I mean, we're not running our technology is running us. And I can literally prove it, but we won't go into the nanoparticles, which is what I spend most of my time on now, is studying nanotechnology.
My audience is very familiar with the vaccines and the nanotechnologies and what they've got planned for us. So, you know, I like to say that we're at that place where we can go into their technocratic smart city environment, you know, chipped in and all that, or we can take our toys and move out to the country and have concentrate on friends and family and grow our own food and still have our technologies. I'm not saying that you get rid of the technologies. I'm saying embrace them, but in a different way. And so it's really the 60s idea of we didn't have computers, but we had this idea that we went out to the country and we were self-sufficient, that was a good thing. And so it's really boiling down to two groups of people in our generation. Okay, one were the I'm forgetting his name now, but he put out the Whole Earth Catalog people, the hippies, the Terrence McKenna's, they were on this one side of more natural life, a more natural thing, and then another aspect of our generation, which is the Steve Jobs people, they were technology. We're gonna perfect technology, and technology, both utopian. That's what's interesting. Both were utopian ideas. One was trying to create utopia in one way, and the other one believed that, you know, you could solve it through technology. As Steve Jobs, when he hired the president of Pepsi to run Apple for a brief period of time, he said, "What do you want to do? Sell sugar water or save the world?" So Steve Jobs literally thought he was saving the world, right? And he's sort of like the epitome of it, because he started out as a shaggy hippie, and in the end he was a slick, you know, guy with the suit on. And so
Rebranded.
Yeah, I could have bought Apple, by the way, in 1978 for $1.50 a share. I got offered 1,000 shares, and I said, nobody's going to want a home computer.
Oh.
So could have made a lot of money on that one. Yeah, so let's talk about like, it's an idea I've had for a while, where, you know, today it's very difficult for people, especially males, young males, to go out into the world and have a unique adventure, because there's restrictions that weren't on when we were young. Because I hitchhiked all over Europe, and I got help from everybody. You couldn't do that today. It costs you a fortune. You need to get a train pass, and so you just couldn't do it like you used to do it. And also then you have like it's very difficult for younger people today, to be initiated. We self-initiated ourselves, I believe. We didn't have elders that understood how to initiate. And so we went out and basically faced the music and got initiated really fast, learned really fast. But that environment doesn't exist anymore. For a while, the initiation changed over to drugs, mushrooms and ayahuasca started about 15 years ago, probably would have made Terrence's hair fall out if he saw that. And that had some benefits, but also a lot of casualties, because again, the teachers weren't very good or anything. And now today, we sit with our generation now, the elders, but we have access to all this technology, and we should be, if we were responsible elders, trying to help young people go on their own hero's journey and to their own place. But the restrictions are so deep that they really can't do it in any kind of physical way. So what's going on, I believe, is right now, and the COVID really sped this up, was that people are going into seeking truth as their hero's journey. They're going into deep dives on the internet and reading your books and hopefully watching my show and listening to me sometimes, and they're realizing that there is this amazing thing. It's both physical and spiritual in nature. It's weirdly powerful. It sits at the center of everything. And it's hidden from us on top of all that. And
It's hidden,
yeah,
yes.
and so that I believe that the new hero's journey is kind of going down these rabbit holes via the internet in your bedroom, because you can't go out anyway, so why not? And I was wondering what you think of that.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, in a way, when we self-initiated in our time, the technology was much more minimalist than it is today. So
Right.
it didn't stand in the way of direct life experiences. It's almost like now technology really stands in the way. And maybe you can find the right way to use it, but it's kind of like this, Jay. When I write a book, every book I've written, in fact, almost, except the ones I've ghostwritten, I handwrite
Oh, really?
everything first, because I have this pencil fetish for one thing, but I also I don't want the machine between me and my thinking.
That's Norman Mailer used to do that.
Yeah, and then I put it on the hard drive. And then I can revise and do whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not sensitive to that. But the initial writing, I have to do it by pencil. So that's what it takes. It's a labor of love. I realize I could maybe go faster, but I don't think it would have the quality of Elana in any of it.
Right.
So we didn't have that sort of cul-de-sac. It's not a cul-de-sac. It's some sort of what's the word I want? It's an object in our way between us and others. And say what?
Obstruction.
Yes, thank you. That's it. I knew it started with an O. And so now you mentioned we need to be showing that. You know what? They don't want us to show them. There
Right.
is a tremendous animosity toward the 60s generation, by the way.
Yeah.
And it is not deserved, but it has been created by a lot of people who think they're very smart and know exactly what it was, because they've read the Newsweek and Time magazine versions of Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, and we weren't doing our job, and look at the mess that we left them. They don't understand that every cooperative in the United States, every food co-op, came straight out of the 60s movement.
Organic
They
food.
don't understand that the good rock and roll, that everybody goes through that phase at some point, it came from the 60s generation. So there's a lot of things that are misunderstood. But one of the things I think they're still doing is they're finding their own self-initiation path. And Rudolf Steiner, I don't know if you know, but I've been a student of Steiner for many, many years, because I was a
I
Waldorf
love
teacher.
Rudolf Steiner. Read everything
Yes.
he's written.
And he said that the problem with the old initiatic ways, like Freemasonry, Catholicism, Judaism, whatever, the problem is that they are not initiating people anymore. They are institutions, and institutions cannot initiate individuals, period. So now the only path of initiation really available, said Rudolf Steiner, is life itself.
That's right.
And that's what these kids are going through too. They're going to have to go through. To me, it looks much harder now because there's a lot of obfuscation by the technology and all the talking heads and the blah 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 blah. But that's the way it is for them. And you know, if you believe like I do that you don't end up by accident here, you chose to come here. Planet Earth, School of Hard Knocks and Self-Initiation. You're going to have to figure out your relationship with it. And it's going to be painful because I went through some pain in the 60s. It wasn't like it was all flowers and, oh, wonderful. No, there were some painful things as I began to realize that the ideal and the reality were so far apart in America, and that this thing we called the establishment at that time, and now I guess I would call the much more complex deep state, the establishment was really sort of destroying the democratic principles and the moral tenor of real Christianity, because it is considered a Christian nation. They were being destroyed, and what was being substituted for them in an ersatz manner was capitalism. And it was like, what? I mean, you know, I was in pain over that because I could see what life could be, how good it could be here in this wealthiest nation, etc. Of course, I didn't know all the dirty little details of the devil, right? The devil's in the details. And now, as a very experienced researcher for many, many years, I definitely know that it's a process and it's a school, and this is a hard nut to crack, this particular lesson we're going through right now. And they have my compassion. And otherwise, if they would only listen to me, and there are a few who do, sometimes I get great letters, you can imagine, I'm sure you do too. But generally speaking, we all have to find our way. And in that time, Jay, it was not easy to find our way. We tend to forget that.
Yeah, well, you know, Bob Dylan said about 15 years ago or so, he said, I'll try to do my best Bob Dylan impression. He was like, we all woke up in 1966 and we realized that corporations owned everything.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And nobody notices today that, you know, this, I guess the CIA learned its lesson as it killed our rock stars one after the other. And even Bobby Dylan, you know, he sold out. And I once took the time to listen to find out where he sold out. And I actually think he didn't sell out so much as he was threatened. And so all the political songs ended. I mean, that's the tragedy.
Yeah. Did you see the 60-minute interview with Bob?
I think so.
Where he said, he said, what do you,
yes.
he said, well, I did a deal with
That's
the
right.
guy who runs this world, right?
That's right. And he did.
He did. Yeah.
And I found the albums, I found exactly where he did that. And I really think.
Right, it was the motorcycle accident.
Well, that too, but it was later when he at least tried. He did a few, remember he went through his Christian period.
Oh yeah,
he wrote some great songs about the devil and all that. I mean, it was still Bob Dylan, right? It was not some schmaltzy born again thing.
He was
but when he came out of that, then there was a period when I can tell you, I don't remember the name of the album, but I followed it and I found it. And it made me sad because I knew somebody had gotten to him and had scared him. I'm sure he loved his kids.
Yeah, he does. He does still love his kids. And, but he's gone. I could tell you some stories about him, but I won't, because bad as he got in the end, his original music was actually pretty good.
He was a poet. He was really a poet, not much of a singer, but a poet, like Leonard Cohen.
Yes, the late, great Leonard Cohen. I just listened to Leonard Cohen's posthumous album, You Want It Darker. And I'm even thinking of doing like a entire show just on what he's actually saying in this album, because he's literally saying that he's sorry that he had to be one of the people that destroyed Christianity. That's the theme of the album, essentially. I'm sorry
Say it
that
again. There was a glitch. Say it again.
I'm sorry that I had to be part of the group that was involved with destroying Christianity.
Yes.
That's the theme of the album.
Yes.
And that
Well,
he
his
knows he's about to
Hallelujah.
die.
I
Yeah.
mean, his Hallelujah song is
Yeah.
world famous. And I had a drink with him when I was 20 years old in the Winston Churchill pub in Montreal, because I was still a model then. It was
Did he try to
Expo
pick you
60.
up?
No, no, he was involved with, what's her name?
Oh,
The
Joni
Judy,
Mitchell. Joni
Joni
Mitchell.
Mitchell.
Yeah.
He was involved with Joni Mitchell at that point. No, no, it was just he was handsome, and I was, I was 20 and just a little kid, really,
Right.
and it was great. It was my moment with Leonard. But his poems, some of his poems are just incredibly good.
They are. He kept to the old iambic pentameter kind of writing and wasn't sloppy. His poetry is very exact, and I think that's what I like best about Leonard Cohen is his
Yes,
just
yes. I mean,
old
he was
school
obsessed
poetry.
with women's bodies. I mean, it did get kind of old to me, but maybe that's because I was getting old.
And no one said naked more than Leonard Cohen.
In case you missed it.
Naked.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But what did you say you wanted to talk about? And then we got into this, which I'm sure
Yeah.
is
Well,
part of
what I want to do is like, um, it would seem to me that what we should do as elders is create some kind of mechanism to assist younger people who are going down their rabbit holes. And initiation, for those who think who may not understand what we're talking about, initiation, really the purpose of initiation is to come face to face with your mortality. You wake up and when you're young, you think you're immortal, and then at one point, sometimes it takes 30 years, sometimes even 40 years. In my case, it only took about 12 years. You realize that you're going to die, that there's no doubt about it. You are going to die. And that, see, if you're not taught that at a young age, what happens is you begin testing it. So males turn into drug users and going fast on the highways and playing with guns and getting in fights and doing all these things because they're trying to test the limits of their mortality. And if they'd been properly initiated, there'd be no gangs, for instance. And so, but we can't really initiate anymore because it would probably be illegal. I hate to say it, but if you did ancient ritual initiations, you could probably get arrested. Not because you're doing anything that's bad. It's just that people misinterpret what you're doing, like you're maybe abusing somebody when you're really not. You're trying to teach that person about their own mortality. So we're caught in a bad situation where the politics is not allowing anybody with advanced spiritual guidance to be able to practice anyway in an open way. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's some kind of mechanism that we can use or create to, tell people, well, why don't you go down this hole right here? Yeah, you got that. You got that right. You got that right. That one's wrong. So why don't you, forget going down that rabbit hole, like the flat Earth, for instance. Everybody out there, if you're going down the flat Earth rabbit hole, stop.
But we already agreed that it's now self-initiation. And so
Yep.
I'm a little confused that you're in what I think of as a typically Western fashion, bringing up the idea of a mechanism. No, it's not a mechanism. I think what could happen, which rarely happens, is to listen to these people, to really listen. And just let them talk and find their ideas, because that's what I see. I see that they're like in a constant need of an enema of some sort from all of the barrage of technology and the video games and the videos, and I mean it's just endless. It's just endless. There's no space. There's no space to have an event happen, and maybe it could happen. Whenever I meet someone and They're younger than me, considerably younger than me. Uh, I go into immediate listening mode and stop blowing my own horn,
Uh,
because I've been my path and I've found my way. I'm one of those people who's found my way. I didn't get lost. I didn't get hammered. I didn't get, wasted and killed or whatever. I'm here still to this day.
that's because you knew
And
what you wanted to do from the beginning.
say it again.
That's because you knew what you wanted to do from the start.
Well, I did. I knew it was here, but I didn't know how to find it. And
Right.
I think that's still the way it is I really think if you scratch down under some of these so-called atheists or agnostic kids, they really want the meaning. I mean, being a human being is about meaning. It's not just about money and power and career success and all the things the West is enamored of. It's about the meaning of what's going on. And to find that meaning, it's not going to come anymore from the elders. I mean, not in white society anyway. I mean, I have Native American friends. She thinks it's going to come through Native America. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible anymore, if indeed Steiner is right, that self-initiation is the only true path of initiation now. And that puts people who've joined brotherhoods and are in league with brotherhoods. Hey, I think they ought to really think about that. That may be like total dead end cul-de-sac, and they don't even know it. Maybe they did it for their career. Maybe they were sort of hoodwinked into it. Wonderful Freemason word, hoodwinked. Whatever it is, and even a Catholic or a Jew or a Muslim. I mean, you're part of this big institution now. Is that really going to give you your path to yourself? I mean, maybe it's because I'm a 60s person. I would say, no, it's not. But I've
No,
never been a member of all that stuff. I've been
no,
anti-institution.
I'm like Groucho Marx. Any club that want me to be a member is no club I'd want to join, right?
Right,
Yeah, and
right.
Terry McKenna used to always say, um, they're going to try to suck you in all the time, but go it alone. Go it alone. You'll be a lot
Yeah, yeah,
happier. And
yeah.
that's always been my philosophy too, is just, no thanks. I don't really need to join you. I can do just fine on my own. And I've never joined any groups, although a lot of groups have wanted me to join them.
Yeah, and I think they're right that it's lonely. Yeah, I would say that I remember a few years ago, maybe 10 or 20, I don't remember. You know how time is. I suddenly realized, my gosh, this consciousness trip I've been on since all my life, and since the 60s in particular, it's pretty lonely.
It
It's
is.
pretty lonely. And yet, when I think about that loneliness, it's kind of precious. It's kind of like
Well
precious
put,
because a
actually.
lot of good stuff comes out of those moments if
Yeah,
you just have the patience.
a lot of people don't, you have to be in our generation to really realize how different we were from our parents. Our parents never even
Yes.
thought about consciousness. So it was never, it wasn't even a thing that was even discussed or talked about, or, even, I don't remember, you had, grandparents that were pretty cool, it sounds like, but I didn't. I grew up in the Midwest and, son of farmers, and there was just nothing there. It was vapid and shallow, and it wasn't, and then when I found consciousness in my 20s, it was like I never looked back, right? And
Yeah.
and literally we couldn't have a conversation with my parents outside of football, and I don't know, there was no relationship at all with any of the things that I was interested in. And a lot of my co-patriots that were my age had the same problem. So I think that the younger generations don't realize how much weeds that we had to whack to create the pathway into these areas that they're just taking for granted. And that's fine. We were pioneers and we did it, and we got the word out. And I think for the most part, we did a pretty good job. We were pretty responsible. we're the generation that had, Terrence McKenna and David Icke and all these people that were paving the way for new ways of thinking, and including the people that invented the computers. Don't forget, it was our generation that created, the personal computer too. So, you
It
know,
was a tremendous generation,
it was,
tremendous.
and we loved our elders. I mean, one of my heroes was J.R.R. Tolkien. He was considerably older than me, and so it wasn't like we didn't, value our elders. It was just that we just wanted to see what kind of new ways there were out there, and so we took our chances.
And that was something that we really did was, I put myself in danger many times, not because I was sadomasochistic or suicidal, but because that's where the experience was leading me. And I was testing limits all the time. I'm sure, I actually am a big believer in guardian angels. And I'm sure that a couple of times I was bailed big time by something invisible that actually kept me from falling, probably, and breaking my back. There were times when I was bailed out by something intangible.
Yep.
And you can call it destiny, you can call it an angel, you can call it luck or coincidence, which I'm really not that comfortable with, actually. But at least I was an embracer of life. And Jay, I have to say, to this day, I believe that my life, such as it was, as it lay out, splayed out over all of the landscape of my time and space, it knew more about my destiny than I did.
Oh, same here.
And it would inform me. And that's why it's important not to be a scaredy cat and hang back, because the clues are everywhere, but you're not born knowing how to read them. And that's why you have to have an open spirit to life itself, capital L, capital I, that it is almost like a being in itself,
It is.
that it has intelligence in it, and it knows what you need. And I'm so grateful that I eventually put that together, and didn't fall into, I remember someone coming to me once saying, "Hey, Lana, do you want to run guns from Mexico for the revolution?" And I'm like, run guns from Mexico for the revolution? No, I think I'm going to pass on that one. That was a little too much for me, because I knew that not only was it illegal, but if I got caught, I'd spend the rest of my life in prison, probably. And so I let that go. So it wasn't like I was just
CIA
following my
operation.
nose everywhere. There were things that I would not do. Big drugs, hard drugs, all that. No, the downer trip was not interesting to me. But I would sometimes fall into some sort of a downer trip because I hadn't realized it was a downer trip, and I'd have to dig my way out, right?
Yeah. Hey, so Elana, tell people where they can like go to check you out.
Okay, so I have a site, my blog site, elanafreeland.com.
I will link
And
to all of these.
yeah, and that's done by my web mistress, bless her heart. And then I have two Facebook sites, one dedicated to geoengineering and everything that is tangential to geoengineering, which I think you'd be surprised how many things are, including vaccinations. And then the other site is Elana Freeland, Sub Rosa America, where everything else sort of is thrown in there along with the kitchen sink. And then otherwise, I have a YouTube channel that I don't really know how to get to, but I know that a lot of my YouTubes are up there.
Cool. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you on. You're well traveled, that's for sure.
Well, it's like old home week with you and me.
Yeah.
That was very nice. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody goes to your site and reads your stuff, because it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, Sub Rosa America is not to be missed, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's up there with that Peter Levenda series. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
But he had a series very similar to Sub Rosa that was really good. I need to get him on the show too. Now that I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he still happening? He seemed like he changed.
He went into UFOs. Right.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being on. And I'm
All
Jay
right.
Weidner. This is Reality Check. And everybody, thanks for watching. And thank you.